Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening. This is our very first Egg Rock Readers event. Um, I'm Grace. I'm the Community Engagement Coordinator at OARS. We're the watershed organization for the Sudbury, Assabet, and Concord rivers, based here in Concord, Mass. And we're really excited to be launching this quarterly event series in collaboration with a ton of local libraries across our watershed, and to aim our focus on events to highlight the science and policy behind some really fascinating environmental stories and environmental reads. So our first book selection that we'll be connecting to tonight is A River Alive, written by Robert McFarlane. The book focuses on that question essentially, is what constitutes life? Can a river or natural community be regarded as alive? And this surprising story of adventure that's threaded with humor and read with a super dynamic cadence proposes this paradigm shift of what life is and highlights these emerging topics in law and policy that recognize rights of rivers as being, which is what we're going to focus on today with our phenomenal speaker, Jenny, who's joining us from Canada. And before I formally introduce her, I'd like to just thank our co-sponsors for this event, Thoreau Alliance, who's formerly the Thoreau Farm and the Thoreau Society, and the Concord Free Public Library, who've helped us put this event all together. And you can find copies of the book we're talking about, Is a River Alive, um, through the Thoreau Alliance. They're available for purchase, and I will link that in the chat in just a second. So now we're really thrilled to be joined by Jenny Vega Cárdenas this afternoon, who's here to talk more about environmental legal personhood and answer questions from our guests. And for a little brief bio, Jenny is a doctor of law, lawyer, president, and co-founder of the International Observatory on the Rights of Nature, and a research advisor at the University of Sherbrooke in Canada. She's an expert member of the UN Harmony with Nature program and the World Commission on Environmental Law of the International Union for Conservation of Nature, or the IUCN. And I could stop there and be thoroughly impressed, but just wait for what's to come. It's amazing. So, she's a recipient of the Coronation Medal of King Charles III for her outstanding contribution to the protection of nature in Canada. She played a key role in the recognition of the rights and legal personhood of the Magpie River, a historic first in Canada, and the Rice Lake, a first in Ontario. In addition, she's a visiting researcher at the Max Planck Institute for International Comparative Law in Hamburg, Germany. She's a lawyer in Canada and Colombia and holds a master's degree in business law and a doctorate in water law from a Canadian university. She's published numerous articles and scientific works in English, French, and Spanish, and is frequently invited to give presentations at national and international conferences on issues relating to water and the rights of nature. She's currently campaigning for the recognition of the legal personhood of the St. Lawrence River in Canada through the International Observatory on the Rights of Nature, and recently co-edited a collective work on the recognition of nature and rivers as subjects of law entitled A Legal Personhood for the St. Lawrence River and Other Rivers of the World, which represents an important contribution in this field. Her latest work is the Methodology and Epistemology of Comparative Law, published by LexisNexis in Canada, and represents a further advance in the field, proposing a new methodology for the decolonization of law. So with so much gratitude, it's my pleasure to welcome Jenny to our meeting and to turn things over to her to talk a little bit more on her incredible work and her experience in this field. So thank you for being here. I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much. I'm very honored to be with you. Thank you for this beautiful invitation. And to all of you that are also attending this meeting, this conversation on a beautiful topic that is A River Alive of Robert McFarlane. I had the pleasure to meet him here in Montreal, and I was very impressed about the way he explains the legal personhood and how he had this experience in the navigating the Magpie. Yes, so in fact, I prepare a presentation for all of you in order to explain some basic concepts. So there you can like follow better what's a legal personhood for nature, what it entails, and the potentiality also for protecting different natural entities around the world. So I will share with you my presentation right here. Just going to do some small steps to be sure that's going to work. Now, can you see my screen?
Perfect. Looks great.
Wonderful. Okay, so yes, I'm the president of the International Observatory on Nature's Rights. In fact, we founded this observatory in 2018. So because we saw the first legal personhood of rivers in New Zealand, in Colombia, in India, and then we started wondering what was it about and what was the potential and the impact on protection of rivers. So yes, our mission principle is to observe the phenomenon, to observe, analyze the different decisions, but also when you understand the importance and the impact and the potential, then we started promoting legal recognition of nature's rights. And we started here, of course, with the Magpie case that we were very happy to support. Now we are supporting the Rice Lake, the second legal personhood for a body of water in Canada, and also collaborating with this St. Lawrence River. And we are, in this case, advancing ecocentric law. So we are helping other people, other groups like you, or different countries around the world, like Poland, or in Colombia, or in Peru, or yes, in different parts of the world. They contact us, reach to us in order to have support, legal support. So we are helping those people to protect rivers in order to have a global impact because we are all connected. You know, all the rivers flow to the sea, and we are all part of this planet. So this is our website. We are part of nature. This is an important principle. We are not separated from rivers, ni for nature. We are part of it. We are part of the ecosystems. And in fact, the rights of nature movement is part of a paradigm shift from anthropocentrism to ecocentrism. Anthropocentrism means that we thought that we were at the top of the pyramid, that all in nature were there only for our only purposes, rivers for only for us, mountains to exploit, trees to cut. Everything was a natural resource. So when you start thinking about what is water, water, many people say, "Ah, it's a natural resource, it's something like a renewable resource." But what's the meaning of resource? Resource is like a tool to achieve an objective. Now my resources are a computer, internet, and I'm using that to um, sharing with you some knowledge. So finally, why I call water a resource? So then we go back to this to the source of everything, and we see that water is more than resources. It's a living ecosystem. This is the origin of life on Earth. It's not a resource. It's not only for us. So we need to recognize the intrinsic value of ecosystem. They have value outside our own interest as humans. And we are part of this ecosystem that sustains all kind of life on Earth. So rights of nature movement but are going to advocate, so is advocating for legal recognition of ecosystems intrinsic value. This is a very important principle, the intrinsic value of nature, and then the rights of nature for preservation, and finally to have an ecological justice. When we talk about ecological justice, is going further to environmental justice. Environmental justice is only for our own purposes. human right to life, human right to clean environment, human right to water and sanitation, bicultural rights, rights of future generations, but they are only embedded maybe inside the nature's rights. Because if we have a river that is alive, that is clean, at the same time, I am protecting the human rights. And I understood that important interdependence and rights when I came back to Colombia, where I come from originally. And I heard about the first legal personhood for a river, the Atrato River. And I was an expert in water law. And I said, what's going on here? I used to read many laws that I'm sure they are not working at all. But now, legal personhood for a river, what that entails? I came back and to talk to the justice who took the decision, and he said, Jenny, I saw that river highly polluted and many violation of the human right to water and sanitations. What should I say? That hundreds of individual rights to water and sanitation have been violated? Or should I think outside of the box and give rights to the river, protect the river, and at the same time I'm going to protect all human rights to water, to sanitation, to life, to health, to biocultural rights that are the rights that are linked to the territory. When you destroy a river and you identify yourself to the territory and you destroy the territory, you destroy what you are linked to. So he said, now I change everything. Yes, we changed the law in Colombia because it was the constitutional court that is like the Supreme Court in Colombia. And I understood that very well. I said, that is the path because I've been working for 15 years, 20 years in water law. And I was very disappointed that the law system wasn't working at all. But what personhood means? So legal personhood refers to the way in which an entity is recognized or treated under the law. So it's a real game changer, that's for sure. And the difference between existing and not existing in law is legal personhood. If you want to have rights, you need to be a holder of rights. And if you want to be holder of rights, you need that legal personhood. So the legal personhood is a vehicle. So you have human beings, we are human persons, we have human rights. We have corporations, they have their legal personality or legal personhood. They have rights and responsibilities and the right to be represented. So they are also legal persons. But natural entities now is their time to be also to have the legal personhood, to exist in law. But they don't have human rights. They have river rights or nature's rights. For example, a right for a river is the right to flow, the right to have their own biodiversity, the right to have healthy water. So it's not for example, the freedom of speech as we have now, women or men here in different countries, but it's the right to be a river. And indigenous worldviews, they understood that for 1,000 years. When I tried to explain to them what legal personhood is and what it entails, they said, Jenny, you don't need to explain me to that. We know that the river is alive, that the rivers have agency and they have a spirit. For us, so I wanted to cite Professor John Burroughs. Is an Anishinaabe law scholar, very good. His writings are beautiful, and he said the more they are not talking about person, but the more than human persons or the more than human world. He said they are not objects, but partners in law. So when you are building or drafting a bill or an authorization, anything, you need to partner with your river, partner with the forest, partner with other animals, with other entities that living creatures where you live and you are sharing the territory. So you need to consider them in any decision you take. It was beautiful to see that Anishinaabe law has understood that very, very long ago. And so we understood that legal personhood is something that exists in common law, in civil law, but also in indigenous legal orders or traditions. And now when we have the first case in Canada, we were doing campaign for the St. Lawrence River to have the legal personhood in order to manage, do a better governance of the river. We were contacted by the Innu people of Equanichit and also the regional county municipality of Mangani. They share this territory, they live together, and they wanted to protect the river from the construction of a dam. And finally, they passed resolutions, twin resolutions, where they identify the river as a person. And afterwards, we saw the recognition of the prize, the award for the river. In the 2022, they received the Rights and Freedom Award in Quebec. Usually they give this to a person, to a human person, but now it's for the river. And also you see there's the people behind that who worked also for this recognition. So it's a collective effort of people. And finally, you understand that you are giving visibility to those made invisible, the community and the river. Because when you had the chance to read this book, they are talking about Rita Mestacosho. Up there, when you see the Until the Last Drop, it's a beautiful documentary or film produced by Eva Ebert, a Polish woman. You see that now the people who are fighting to protect the river, they are also at the heart of the movie. And you see now with this book, you're talking about the Magpie River. Many Canadians didn't know that we have a beautiful river named Magpie. Now everyone know that it exists and it has a legal personhood. It has a story to be told. Also, the TV5 in France, they came here to visit the river, to do some interviews, to know more about why they did this beautiful step. And I also encourage you to see the nature of things. I am the Magpie River. You're going to Google it and you're going to find it. This is a small movie of 1 hour, more or less, and you're going to understand better why we get to that point to say this is the best way to protect the river and to put value also in the indigenous perspectives and local communities fight to protect it for future generations. So really is a true game changer. It empowers local communities to reshape the law by transforming the narratives. A story to be told in their own voice and the voice of the river. And now is the time for the Rice Lake. The Rice Lake was recognized as a legal person by the chief. You see the photo of the chief in the middle of my colleague and I. We were at the COP13 in Brazil, and he shared this initiative saying, now it's time for local communities, for indigenous nations, for everyone to do a step for climate. And the climate step and biodiversity purposes is to protect the lake because the lake is our past, our present, and our future. And now they are we are working together for the implementation of the resolution, but you see, it's just a beautiful process that encourages everyone to do something, not just waiting for the federal government or the provincial government, state government to do something. You can do something yourself. One person can do a huge difference. And then you see that the transforming relationship with the river from domination to equality, respect, and reciprocity. In fact, I have been asked many times for example, saying, what is the difference between recognizing a river as a person or just cleaning it up and taking care? So the difference I found in the book of Robin Wall Kimmerer, Braiding Sweetgrass. She said, restoring land without restoring relationship is an empty exercise. It is relationship that will endure and a relationship that will sustain the restored land. Therefore, recognizing people and the landscape is an essential of reestablishing proper hydrology or cleaning up contaminants. It is medicine for the earth. So changing the relationship, you're going to be sure that the cleaning up that you are doing going to last for many generations, because many generations going to think differently before dumping something in a lake or in the river. So I was very, very happy to found this and this relationship and not domination. This is my river. I'm going to extract some minerals. I'm going to put a dam or something like that. No, we can cohabit. We're going to they share this beautiful lake together, and to understand that I'm part of the lake. And when I drink the water, I'm now part of the river, because we have all this beautiful biodiversity inside us, and also that we are part of the ecosystem. So thank you so much. This is just a small explanation, just to be clear about legal personhood. Sometimes it's very a technical concept, and I give the floor to my colleague so that she can have start the conversation. Thank you so much.
Wow, thank you for presenting that. I'm personally already learning so much. So, um, thank you for sharing. And we'd love to open it up for if anyone has questions or topics that they like to bring up. Please let us know if you're welcome to unmute. But also if you put your questions in the chat, I'm happy to read them out. I can get us started too. While everybody kind of thinks on their own. I'm curious too, just it's not super explicit in the book when we were reading it, but through this whole process of granting legal personhood rights to a river, how long does that usually take? And I'm sure it's very different for each river that you're working towards, but yeah, what's the timeline on that, or what steps are usually involved in that process of granting these rights?
Yeah, in fact, the process of granting personhood, I could say it's about 2 years, more or less. In some cases, of course. But the most important thing is to have a community that is engaged on the process. They have the energy, the determination to go forward. When people are motivated, and usually when it's a local resolution, for example, from municipalities or indigenous nations, it goes very, very fast. 2 years is like fast for a legislation. But if you want a big bill coming from the Congress and from the Parliament, is very slow, because rivers flow faster than legislation. You know it. But yeah, politicians are not always agree with this with changing things. And also other communities have tried to present this before the courts. So before the court, it depends on the process you choose. So, for example, in Colombia, we have some ways to go to the court invoking human rights, and then you will have a decision around maybe 2 months or something like that. And then you have the second instance, like 2 months or 6 months later. But finally, like 6 months or 1 year, you could have the legal person who recognized by the court. So it depends on each law framework. Also, you can see different declarations, citizen declarations. So you can just start a movement and ask people to sign it. That you have a citizen declaration, is you don't have a government involved in that, but it's like a first step to ask people to ask the politicians or the representatives in different levels to go forward and to make a big step on that. So I could say that's around 2 years, because first of all, we start with a conversation, with a workshop like this, more or less. Then when people understand the potential and why we need or it's important to go forward, then we start the process.
Amazing.
Thank you for the question.
Any questions from our audience before we keep going here? Not yet. Everyone's still thinking. Um, who who do you encounter who's usually opposed to these regulations? Who pushes back? Is there a certain group or entity that usually is the voice that's saying, no, we don't necessarily want these regulations?
Yes, and we have usually opposition. Sometimes come from the strong economic interest connected to the river. So, for example, mining or large-scale agriculture, hydroelectric projects, or major infrastructure developments, like, for example, roads. Sometimes roads they need to destroy a river to pass. So they are like sometimes worry and they don't want to have new environmental responsibilities or legal challenges. They are well in the status quo, say they opposed. But usually you're going to see that they prefer the status quo. And I call them the status quo beneficiaries. They say always in each country that I have traveled to, they say our legal system is already perfect and it's very well equipped to protect nature. We don't need legal personhood. This is the good argument because yes, sounds good, sounds very reasonable until you notice that those laws that they are invoking they are not being implemented, and for decades, why rivers are just being degrading? Why? So we have been having this conversation and saying, but so if the law system is perfect, why we are having this conversation about dying rivers right now? Because as Robert said, you can understand a river is alive when you are thinking on dead rivers. So why we having this conversation right now? So that's why we need to make the law framework evolve, but a lot of people, yeah, maybe you have seen those people saying that the law framework is perfect and we don't need that change.
Amazing. I see Kim has a hand up. Go ahead, Kim.
Thank you for coming to speak to us. Can you tell us when the legal right is brought into court or into play, who speaks for the river, and how do they how is their agreement on who is authorized to speak for the river, and is there pushback about, well, how do you know what the river wants? Maybe the river wants something totally different.
Yeah, those are great questions. In fact, you have different models. And Ecuador, for example, they only recognize legal rights for nature in general. So everyone can present a suit before the courts. So if you see something that is going, yeah, for example, a river that's going to be destroyed without any authorization, or they consider that the authorization is not well approved, they can present it. And we have seen recently many good decisions for nature. So we have saved rivers and also the Cedros. The Cedros mountain that is also it's inside the book in the first chapter was a wonderful fight because it's a law fight. You need to ask experts to see the all biodiversity, what we are going to lose if we destroy the mountain in order to make an exploitation of copper or maybe oil or maybe, but then you're going to do a balance between both. And you to see if the authorization will given in the right with the right purposes and or not. So now we have a real good conversation on that. Other models, they have like a council of guardians. And in Spain, they are implementing the first law in recognizing the legal personhood of the Mar Menor. And they put a lot of different representatives, but many people coming from the civil society. They say that the best guardians are civil societies, citizens who really love the river, who doesn't have interest on the decision, because you need to, if you are a guardian, you need to consider that you are not talking for your own interest. You need to take the best interest of the river. And how you determine what's the best interest of the river? You know, a river wants to be a river, wants to be a home for many species. So it's easy, really easy to understand that. But if you are not sure to know what is really good for the river, then you have science. And science is a very good voice for the river, because they know if the lake is going to collapse, because the Mar Menor, for example, it collapsed. They have no oxygen at all, and the fishes get out of the Mar Menor because it was very toxic. And then they saw what we are doing, and we are not being harmed. It's the Mar Menor. It's a salty lagoon that has been that has collapsed. So finally, we can very easily understand what is better for a natural entity, because it's just the purpose to be that entity, to be a river, to flow, to have your own biodiversity. And then with science, we can easily translate what's the health, what the threats are, and what is the best interest for the river.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think it must be more complicated than that, but we have precedents. You know, we have other people who can't speak for themselves, like babies and people with dementia, and the legal system manages to find ways to designate guardians for other entities that can't speak for themselves. So I could see, you know, a body of case law developing that could make this workable, but I can see a lot of, you know, a lot of knockdown, drag out fights before we arrive at that sort of consensus with, you know, like, well, I speak for the river. No, I speak for the river. So
Yes, yeah, I know that even science, yeah, you can have two different expertise, but then at least you have many guardians who are going to try to speak for the river and ask for compensation. But now we don't have any voice, only the government voice, and that's all.
thank you.
Yeah.
We have a question in the chat quickly that's are you aware of any rivers in the United States that are sort of at the forefront of this effort that they're trying to gain these rights for?
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful question. Yeah, we have at our website, and I'm going to put in the chat, we are building an interactive map. And inside, you're going to see that USA have a lot of entities recognized as legal persons. They're like champions. And you have also Christopher Stone, who wrote the pioneer book on Should Trees Have a Standing? And he shows to the world how it was important to give the voice to nature, because you have nature law in common law systems. You have to before when you go to the court, you have to listen the people who are going to be condemned before, just at least listen. But we don't give that possibility to a river or a lake. You want to destroy it, we are not going to hear the voice of the river, even the science. So this is like a fair trial that we need to do in each case. So I saw, for example, the Klamath River was recognized as a legal person. And recently, I was happy to see that even the Colorado River was recognized as a legal person by indigenous nations. But I have studied the case of the Colorado River, and I have been so sad when to see that the river didn't have the right to have their own water. The ecosystem doesn't have the right to have water. Everyone has the rights, the water rights. Agriculture, mining, cities, citizens, about cities or yes, municipalities, but not the river. So some NGOs are buying water from the stock exchange just to let the water flow and to help the ecosystem. But it is very expensive to buy water from the stock market. So I say, what we have done? The river and the ecosystem doesn't have the right to have their own water. So that's something that needs to be addressed and to be changed, my perspective. Thank you for the question.
Right. So fascinating. Jeff, I see you have a hand up.
Thank you. Yenny, thank you so much for joining us and for the work you do. I've loved this topic since reading Roderick Nash's Rights of Nature 30 years ago, I think, and still have it with me. Um, and so fully in support of this whole concept. But I wonder, the book raises an interesting concept. It's just almost like a throwaway line, or maybe he gets into it later in the book. I have to admit, I'm not to the end of the book. If if a river or a natural element, let's say a river has rights, does it also have responsibilities? Could have any of these movements around the world led to hazards in the legal system? In the book, he says if a river floods out an area, can the river be sued for damages? And then could the advocates, take on that responsibility too? So has that turned up at all, or what's the response to that question?
That's an important question, very, very important one. Uh, because we need to know that when we recognize the rights of rivers, you have the river has the right of natural cycles. So if it has the right to natural cycles, he can flood, take the land and comes back. It's natural. So we cannot sue the river for that. If he's changing the path or doing many things, because it's a river for one part. So we cannot sue the river. Second, it's parallel with children. Children, they have rights, but they don't have responsibilities. So it's similar. Also, people who are like protected, that they cannot take their own decision, but they're represented by other people because of maybe sickness or something. They don't have responsibilities. So we cannot sue that person or the children. Uh, and third, we have also in our law system something that is like the act of God or the act of nature. So it's for example, if you are selling a home, I say I'm going to give you the home in 2 days, but you have a earthquake, then you don't have a home, so you cannot honor the contract. You cannot be sued because it's an act of God, it's an act of nature. So you cannot sue. And this is the real our real law at this moment. Understand that nature's act is not cannot produce any liability for the river or for nature, and even for any person, because it's nature and it's an act of God, an act of nature. And also, if people want to think on responsibilities, sometimes they said that the river has already accomplished their own responsibilities to give us clean water, to give us the potentially to have food, fishes, and everything we need. So he even cleaning the air. So he has already accomplished his own responsibilities, that is to be a river, and that we in economy we call that some benefits or of nature, or we say services, environmental services.
Mhm.
So he has already accomplished his own responsibilities.
Thank you.
Thank you. Alan, you can go ahead.
Well, thanks for this presentation. By way of full disclosure, I'll let you know that, and the rest of the group know, that I am a lawyer, and I'm on the board of OARS, the organization for the Assabet, Sudbury, and Concord rivers, that has been doing yeoman's work for decades trying to protect our rivers, having had much success along the way, uh, improving the conditions of the river. It was once terribly, terribly polluted, and we've improved that a great deal. We're working on the flow, which has been impeded by a whole variety of dams. These rivers, particularly the Assabet, was one of the first rivers in the U.S. that helped generate our industrial revolution, and we're going after those dams. To get to the chase, my basic question is, we have a lot of tools. Massachusetts law has given us a lot of tools to work towards improving the rivers. What are we missing by not having the river declared somehow personhood? What can't we do right now? And I don't know if I'll get another chance. I had a second question, but which has to do with the St. Lawrence. You mentioned the St. Lawrence, and I was just up there last week in Quebec City. I was up there cross-country skiing. And of course, when you get on the bank of the St. Lawrence there, you're up on the Citadel looking out at the river. It's just magnificent. It's a majestic river, an iconic river. And I'm wondering if that's what it takes to generate the momentum ultimately to get personhood named for a river. Do you really need to have that kind of iconic status, or does it work on smaller streams?
I think the most important thing is the people behind. If you, for example, if you have done a lot of work concerning protecting the protection of one river and that you have cleaned it up and you want the world to know it, it's a very good way because now people going to turn her head and to see, sorry, what are you talking about? Which river? Where is it located? Who did that? What are you doing? And then it exists now. Now you're talking here about the Magpie River, was an unknown river for many people, even Canadians. They didn't know, but there I was like, sorry, where is it located? We want to see who are fighting for the river. Now it's existing in law. Even the United Nations General Secretary has written in his reports about Magpie River was a known river. So this is something that also give light to communities and empower the communities. And then you're going to show to the world what are you doing? Because one of the things that I love of giving legal personhood a practical and something that wasn't expected was the light, because everyone was interested to know what is going on there, the story to be told, and that story, you pass the story to other people that are going to retell the story and then going to get inspired on that cases. And this is a question of hope. And I think legal personhood give us hope that we can change things and put light on the efforts that you are doing. That is the most important practical thing that I've been experienced in each case, is that afterwards you know more about the river, but mostly about the community, about the people who were suffering or who were fighting, doing a lot of things for the river that we didn't know. So I think it's a very practical thing that we need to know. So you can do it if you are if you have an agreement between different authorities. I know that in different law systems, for example, in the United States, people are like afraid of being sued by the river, but it doesn't need to happen. You need to have an agreement, and that everyone's going to put efforts to go do it better, to let the people know more about the river, the region. For example, Magpie River is very far from Montreal. It's like 10 hours from here by car, and you need to, if you take a plane, then you need to take 2 hours driving. It's not easy to get there. But now people are coming in transit to Montreal to get to the Magpie River. For example, like Robert, he just came in transit 2 days to go to the Magpie River and stay there for a whole week or 10 days just to explore the region. So it never happened before that. So I think it's a very strategic tool to protecting river and to know the people, to show to the world that it's important and that we need to change our relationship. Thank you for the question. And for the St. Lawrence, I know this iconic, and we have a special momentum here in Quebec because we are building a new constitution. As the first one, in fact, the first constitution of Quebec, and we are pleading for including the river inside within its intrinsic value and part of the identity of the peoples of Quebec. We will let you know if it passes.
I think this is a good lead in. There's a question in the chat that says that groups that have a more direct commercial interest in rivers, so fisheries, tourist activities, self-proprietary, non-corporate, what levels of support have you received for this legislation from those groups?
Yes, I think people who are doing, for example, fishing, they understand that it's important for them to protect the ecosystem because we have a lot of also laws here who are going to impede to fish one kind of fish if it's dying or we are just in a bottom of affecting this species. So they know that we can continue fishing and eating the fish, but it's going to be a healthy fish, healthier, because there are less pollutants into the fish and also to do it in the right way so that we can conserve the species because it's part of the ecosystem. We are also using the river, eating the fish, but it is also we are part of the ecosystem. So we are predators, but they need in some yeah in a kind yeah because they need to keep the volume of fishes also for themselves to produce. So I think for them we have support also people who are doing a lot of tourism because it's a different economy. It's an ecotourism. For example, in Magpie River, the whitewater expeditions, they love to do that because you are conserving the beautiful spaces and then building new economies. And of course, people who are building dams, they don't really they are not saying a word. They are just saying nothing. They are very polite. At least they just change subject and go away. But yes, it depends. It depends. But we need to do a lot of work, mostly in mining, because sometimes mining, they are thinking that lakes can be just a place where you can dump wastewater. And no, lakes are ecosystem, are alive. Please build that anywhere else, but not throw the wastewater into a lake. But it's a lot of work, hard work that has to be done. Thank you.
There's one more question in the chat. Given how intuitive it is for Indigenous people to understand this concept of a river being alive, what advice might you offer to non-native people or non-Indigenous people that could make it easier to embrace this new way of thinking?
Yeah, I think it's we need to explain a lot of things, but it is something like a translation of terms. When they say, for example, the river is alive, we can translate it into the river is full of life. The river is an ecosystem, so we can say this the river is a person or is an ancestor. Yes, the river is an ecosystem that also merits deserves to be protected. They have different relationship because for them it's part of their family. A river is an ancestor who protected them in the past, so they have the obligation to protect the river now in the present. For us, it's like we are part of the ecosystem. Yes, of course, because when you drink the water, for example, I'm drinking the San Lorenzo River water, all the pollutant you have inside, I'm drinking it also because the treatment is not is letting pass many things into the water. But it's also we can see the practical thing of being in better health for us, for our children, because I heard a chief, the Cree of the Cree nation here in Quebec, and he said, it's not only for our children, it's for your children too, our children together, because they are going to live together anyways in this same land. So it's for the best for everyone. So I think it's important to translate terms and how you can explain yourself. Thank you.
Right. Patricia?
Yes, thank you.
I think you just got on mute.
Okay. Would there be a presumption in the creation of this personhood that the best natural state of the river, would that it would be a wild river? What would be any type of presumption of state of the river? I mean, this addresses some of the commercial use, the fishing use, and so on, but is there a general presumption in the statute or the creating instrument?
I think that the best thing is to think in a healthy river, like a person. For example, each of us, we want to be healthy. We are maybe our health is not top shape. We don't have 100%, but at least we can exist and we can live. For example, when we were writing the draft resolutions for the Innu people and the Magpie, there was the first right was the right to live, the right to exist. For Innu people, were like, yeah, of course, that's the main thing, to exist, to live. The other was like, live for a river, living for a river.
Right.
We don't understand that. Like,
Uh-huh.
okay, maybe exist, but because existence is the first thing.
Certainly. But what about, say, altering the course of the river, things like that? Any presumption against doing something in that way, or encasing it in concrete, like the Los Angeles River?
Yeah, I think that we need to accept what it is.
Okay.
We cannot come into an utopia or think that we are just going to change everything. We're going to do step by step and do what it is, what we can do for the best and improve little by little. We have changed many things in nature. Many rivers don't have their own, even the riverbed is sometimes they are just in concrete. But little by little, we have been understanding many things, and now we are changing things. Even in cities, they are giving life to living rivers inside the city, and they are welcoming and open rivers that were just covered. And they are opening these, and they are joining a small movement of swimmable cities and living cities. For example, Bogota, where I live before, in Bogota, Colombia, suddenly I saw a river coming from the mountain in the middle of the on downtown. I was like, what is that? And many people were like just refreshing a little bit themselves and says, what is the what is coming from the mountain? And they just open it and leave the water flows. And we have covered it for many years. So we can do little steps, little by little, and it is good for our lives and also for the quality of life in the middle of cities that sometimes we are suffocated. So I think we need to do step by step and just to be conscious that we do what we can do. Thank you for the question.
Hey, I think we have time for one more question if you're okay with that. I know we're getting close on time, so I'm going to read from the chat. And Ingeborg, if I don't explain this right, please feel free to jump in. But the question says that in the US, nature rights, the efforts to gain these have been mixed. The courts require a strong connection between establishing rights of nature and a public health benefit. But there's also a strong protection of private property in the United States. So, any input from your experience or advice from the US on balancing these kind of two factors?
I don't know if I understand well the question. So it's like balancing the interest of public health and the interest of private property.
That in and yep, Ingeborg, if you want to jump in, but I'll try to explain the best. But that there is a benefit to public health of
Yeah.
protecting these rivers or of
Yeah.
giving them a right to legal personhood. But there's also this interest in protecting private property that then would make it kind of hard to put some sort of broad legal designation on a river that's sort of owned privately.
Okay, yeah, I understand. Yeah, in fact, what is beautiful on that is that when you have a cottage before in front of a river that has rights, that it is clean, that you can swim and you can fish and it's clean and it's healthy, your property has more value. If you have a lake that is dying, that you cannot touch it because it's toxic, your property is going to have a huge loss of value. So I think it's even good for property. And we have seen this in Quebec because there's a lot of cottages here around the cities. And all people, they want to have a small house in front of the lake. But then we have a huge problem of blue algae, how do you say that in English?
Algae.
Algae, thank you. The blue algae is very toxic. So when kids were intended to swim, they just touch it and they were right away had to go to the hospital. So the value of the cottages went down. Now they had to analyze everything, and they knew that was because of a lot of pesticide and a lot of engrais. I don't know what the name in English is, but it's something that for the plants to grow better and have a lot of potassium, a lot of that is mixed, and then you produce that. So they try to change all the products, even the cleaning up products inside your home to protect the lake, so you can enjoy the lake. So your property is going to have the value. So I think it's good for everyone. Thank you.
Fantastic. Well, we're almost at 7 o'clock. So the biggest thank you to you, Jenny, for your insight and for joining us. We're really lucky to have you here with us this afternoon. And I see everyone send your little claps and your hearts in the chat. Yeah, so thank you for being here. This is really wonderful to hear from you. We appreciate it so much.
Thank you. Thank you. And I just wanted to leave you with a reflection that I had when I was preparing this presentation for you. In fact, Robert McFarlane, he reflects in his book about the river and the fascinating question of, is a river alive? Do you think that the river is alive? And also, I don't know what to answer on that. Do you think the river is alive? He said that his voice said right away, yes, it's alive. Many people said, yes, alive. And I was thinking, like, it's something like, is there life after death? You can believe it or you may not believe it, but one thing remains very certain, that the rivers have a powerful spirit. And perhaps this is precisely that spirit that brings us all today together here to talk about how to protect them. So thank you so much.
Amazing. So beautiful and such a good way to end. Just one note, our next book, following some of the topics in this book on the sonic elements of nature and listening to mycorrhizal networks and bioacoustics. Our next Egg Rock Readers book is called The Sounds of Life by Karen Baker, and we'll have an event on that in May. A little bit of further discussion on bioacoustics. But in the meantime, OARS has an event next Saturday on March 14th called Sounds of Science that dives into this bioacoustics realm with Dr. Elizabeth Plucker, who's a bioacoustics researcher. And I just put the link in the chat as well for that event. We have tickets going on sale now. And yeah, just a reminder, you can buy Is the River Alive through the Thoreau Alliance. That's also linked in the chat. And a big thank you again to the Thoreau Alliance and Concord Free Public Library. And of course, to Jenny for joining us and to you all for tuning in and for supporting OARS. So until next time, I hope you have a great evening and hope to see you again for another Egg Rock Readers in the future.
Thank you to you all. Have a great evening. Thank you for your comment and questions and for the invitation. Very honored.